Taeho stared at the screen and rubbed his tired eyes. The numbers kept dancing in front of him like angry insects. He had been working the night shift at the Baekdu station for 3 months now and still could not get used to the silence of deep space. The monitoring station floated in the darkness between stars, far from any planet or moon. Its job was simple: listen for signals that should not be there. The coffee tasted like metal and disappointment, but Taeho drank it anyway. His fingers moved across the control panel, checking frequencies that rarely showed anything interesting. Most days brought only the usual background noise of the universe: solar winds, magnetic storms, and the occasional signal from human ships traveling between colonies. Tonight felt different, though. Something was making the instruments act strange. Captain. Yunji walked into the communications room with her usual quiet steps. She was a small woman, but everyone on the station knew she had fought in the Mars Rebellion 20 years ago. Her black hair was always pulled back tight, and her dark eyes missed nothing. She looked at the displays and frowned. Anything unusual? Tonight, Taeho, he pointed at a section of his screen where strange patterns were forming. There is something here, Captain, but I cannot figure out what it is. The signal is weak and keeps changing. It does not match any human transmission codes. Yunji moved closer and studied the data. The patterns looked like waves crashing on a shore, but they were too regular to be natural interference. She had seen many signals during her years in space, but this one made her feel uncomfortable. "Call Do-hyun and get him up here," she said. "If this is an alien transmission, we will need someone who understands languages." Do-hyun arrived 15 minutes later, carrying a cup of tea and looking annoyed about being woken up. He was the station's language expert and could speak 12 human languages plus the few alien words that humanity had learned from crashed ships over the years. His thin face looked pale under the artificial lights as he sat down at the secondary console. "What do we have?" he asked while connecting his translation programs to the main system. Taeho played the signal for him. The sounds that came from the speakers were unlike anything they had heard before. There were clicking noises mixed with something that sounded like singing, but wrong somehow. The patterns repeated every few minutes with slight changes each time. Do-hyun worked in silence for an hour while Taeho and Yunji watched the stars through the observation window. The captain had sent a message to Earth Command informing them about the unknown signal, but it would take days to get a response across the vast distances of space. "Captain," Do-hyun said suddenly. His voice sounded strange and worried. "I think I have something, but you are not going to like it." Yunji and Taeho gathered around his workstation. The screen showed several different waveform patterns and blocks of text in various colors. Do-hyun pointed at the first section. "This part here is definitely a language, but not one I have ever seen before. The structure is completely alien. But listen to this." He played a modified version of the signal where his computer had isolated certain sounds. "The same message is being repeated in 17 different alien languages. 17, Captain." Implications hit them immediately. If aliens were using 17 different languages, it meant there was some kind of galactic community out there that humanity knew nothing about. Earth had always assumed they were alone, or at least the most advanced species in their part of the galaxy. "What does the message say?" Yunji asked. Do-hyun looked uncomfortable. "The translation is rough, but the basic meaning is clear. Someone is asking for help. They are saying that something called the Devourers is destroying everything and that time is running out. There are coordinates included and a request for any Deathworld species to respond." "Deathworld species," Taeho repeated. "What does that mean?" "I am not sure," Do-hyun admitted. "But the way it is phrased suggests that whoever sent this thinks Deathworld species are more dangerous or capable than others. They specifically ask for Deathworld species to help them." Captain Yunji was quiet for a long moment. She had commanded military vessels during the worst periods of human expansion, when colonies were constantly under threat from pirates, hostile environments, and equipment failures. The idea that aliens existed was shocking enough, but the suggestion that they were asking humans for help was almost impossible to believe. "Show me the coordinates," she said finally. Do-hyun brought up a star chart on the main display. A red dot appeared in empty space far from any human colony. The location was in what Earth called the Velas sector, a region that long-range probes had found to be empty of planets or useful resources. "How far is that from here?" Yunji asked. "About 3 weeks travel time for a fast ship," Taeho calculated. "But Captain, we do not know anything about what is out there. This could be a trap." Yunji nodded, but she was thinking about something else. During her military service, she had learned that the universe was full of dangers that could destroy human colonies in hours. If there really was something called the Devourers that could threaten multiple alien species, it might eventually threaten humanity as well. "Do Hyun, can you decode any more of the message?" The linguist worked for another hour while they waited. His program slowly picked apart the alien languages and found more information hidden in the signal. What they discovered made them all feel cold, despite the warm air on the station. "There are data packets attached to the main message," Do Hyun reported. "Images, star charts, and what looks like historical records. The Devourers appear to be some kind of weapon or force that consumes entire star systems. According to these records, they have already destroyed 17 different civilizations." The images were the worst part. Taeho watched in horror as the screen showed planets being stripped of all matter until nothing remained but empty space. Entire solar systems were reduced to dust and darkness. Whatever the Devourers were, they did not just conquer worlds. They completely erased them. "How long has this been going on?" Yunji asked. "The oldest records go back thousands of years," Do-hyun said. "But the rate of destruction has been increasing. In the last 50 years, they have consumed more systems than in the previous 500. A new signal came through the communications. Array and Taeho quickly switched to receive it. This transmission was stronger and clearer than the first. The alien voices sounded more desperate now, and there were background sounds of explosions and what might have been screaming. Do-hyun translated as fast as he could. "They are saying the Devourers have reached their home system. They are asking again for any Deathworld species to help them. They say that only species from dangerous worlds might be able to survive what they cannot." The transmission included new visual data showing massive biomechanical entities attacking space stations and planets. The aliens defending their worlds used weapons that seemed advanced beyond anything humanity possessed, but the Devourers absorbed the energy attacks and grew larger. Nothing the aliens tried seemed to slow down their enemies. "Captain," Taeho said quietly, "look at this part of the transmission." He had isolated a section of the alien message that showed star charts comparing different species and their home worlds. Earth appeared on the chart, marked with symbols that the translation program could not decode, but the meaning was clear from context. Whoever had sent the message knew about humanity and considered Earth to be an extremely dangerous world. Yunji stared at the display for a long time. She thought about all the ways that Earth tried to kill humans every day. Poisonous air, crushing gravity, radiation from the sun, weather that could freeze or burn, earthquakes, volcanoes, and countless other dangers. Humans had adapted to survive on a world that would kill most other species in minutes. "Send a priority message to Earth Command," she ordered. "Include everything we have found and request immediate instructions. Also prepare a full report for Admiral Hwan-Soo and the Defense Council." As Taeho worked on the transmission, another signal arrived from the alien source. This time the message was shorter and more urgent. Do-hyun translated it quickly. "Please, help us! We know you are the Deathworld species, only you might survive what we cannot. Coordinates follow. Time is running out." The transmission ended with coordinates and then silence. The aliens were gone, either destroyed or driven away from their communication equipment. In the quiet of the monitoring station, 3 humans sat staring at evidence that they were not alone in the universe and that something terrible was coming for everyone. Admiral Kyung-soo stood in the main command center on Luna Base and watched as reports flooded in from across human space. The alien distress signal had reached Earth 12 hours ago, and the entire military structure was moving faster than anyone had seen since the Titan Wars. Ships were being recalled from patrol duties, reserve fleets were being activated, and every major shipyard was working around the clock to prepare vessels for what might be humanity's first contact with a galactic threat. The debate in the War Council had lasted only 3 hours before the vote was unanimous. Earth would respond to the alien distress call with the largest military force in human history. Admiral Hwan-Soo had initially opposed the mission, arguing that humanity should focus on defending their own worlds, but even he changed his mind. When the xenobiology teams analyzed the alien data, Dr. Subin had presented the most frightening conclusion. If the Devourers continued their pattern of expansion, they would reach the outer human colonies within 50 years. The choice was not whether to fight, but whether to fight now with alien allies or later when humanity stood alone. Fleet Admiral Mi Young arrived at Luna Base aboard her flagship Sol, a massive battleship that had never seen real combat, but was designed to fight wars across multiple star systems. She was younger than most admirals, only 45 years old, but her tactical simulations had revolutionized human military doctrine. Her black hair was cut short in military style, and her calm expression hid a mind that could calculate fleet movements across dozens of star systems simultaneously. "Status report, Admiral Kyung-soo," she said as she entered the command center. Kyung-soo brought up the main display showing human space divided into colored sections. Green areas showed ready fleets, yellow showed fleets preparing to move, and red showed critical defense positions that could not be abandoned. "We have 847 combat vessels ready to deploy," he reported. "The first through. Fifth fleets are already assembled at the staging points. The Mars shipyards have completed emergency refits on another 200 support ships. We can have over 1,000 vessels ready to depart within 48 hours. Mi Young studied the numbers with satisfaction. Humanity had been preparing for war since they first reached the stars 3 centuries ago. Every human ship was built for combat, every colony had defensive installations, and every citizen received basic military training. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and humans had learned to be more dangerous than anything they might encounter. "What about personnel?" she asked. 50,000 Marines, 20,000 pilots, 30,000 support crew, and 15,000 specialists, Kyung-soo answered. "We also have volunteers from the colonies." When word spread about the alien request for help, recruitment stations were overwhelmed. People want to be part of this mission. The preparations continued throughout. The day as supply ships loaded ammunition, food, medical supplies, and spare parts for what might be a very long campaign. The human fleet would be traveling farther from Earth than any previous expedition, and they had no idea what they would find when they reached the Velas sector. Taeho, Do-hyun, and Captain Yoonji arrived from the Baekdu station on a fast courier ship. They had been specifically requested for the mission because they were the first humans to make contact with the alien signal. Taeho would serve as the primary xenocommunications specialist, while Do-hyun would work as cultural liaison and translator. "Captain Yoonji reporting for duty, Admiral," she said when they met Mi Young in the briefing room. Mi Young looked at the 3 people who had discovered evidence of galactic civilization and an existential threat to all life. They seemed ordinary enough. A young communications officer, a middle-aged linguist, and a veteran ship captain. But they had taken the first steps toward what might be humanity's greatest adventure or its greatest disaster. "Tell me about the aliens," Mi Young said simply. Do-hyun opened his portable computer and displayed the translated messages. "Based on the linguistic analysis, we are dealing with at least 17 different species that can communicate with each other. This suggests a galactic community that has existed for thousands of years. They use trade languages and diplomatic protocols that we know nothing about." "What about their technology?" Mi Young asked. "Advanced, but not invincible," Captain Yoonji answered. "The visual data shows energy weapons, force shields, and faster-than-light travel that surpasses our current capabilities. But the Devourers are defeating them anyway. Whatever we are going to face out there, superior technology alone will not be enough." Taeho had been studying the technical specifications of the alien distress signal. "Admiral, there is something else. The aliens specifically requested help from Deathworld species. They seem to believe that beings from dangerous planets might be more effective against the Devourers than their advanced civilizations." This observation had been troubling military analysts since the first translation was completed. Earth was indeed a dangerous world by galactic standards, but humanity had never thought of this as an advantage. The crushing gravity, toxic atmosphere, and hostile environment that humans considered normal might be impossible conditions for most alien species. Over the following 2 days, the largest fleet in human history assembled at the launch coordinates. The Sol led Battle Group Alpha, consisting of 100 heavy battleships. Battlegroup Beta was built around fast cruisers designed for hit-and-run attacks. Battlegroup Gamma consisted of carriers loaded with fighter craft and assault boats. Support Group Delta included hospital ships, supply vessels, and mobile repair platforms. Commander Wu Jin briefed his special forces teams on the assault ship Hala. He was a compact man with scars from a dozen different conflicts and eyes that had seen too much combat. His soldiers were volunteers from elite units across human space, trained for operations in hostile environments where normal troops could not survive. "We do not know what we will be fighting," he told them. "The aliens call them Devourers, and they appear to be biomechanical in nature. Our job will be boarding actions and ground assault operations. The environment inside enemy vessels will probably be toxic. The gravity might be crushing, and the atmosphere could be corrosive. In other words, just another day for human soldiers." The troops laughed at this, but they understood the serious point. Humans had evolved to survive on a world that tried to kill them every day. They could function in environments that would incapacitate most other species within minutes. Chief Engineer Hae Jin worked frantically to modify human weapons based on the alien technical data. The energy weapons and missiles that formed the core of human military doctrine might not be effective against enemies that could adapt to new threats. She ordered the production of kinetic weapons, railguns that fired solid metal projectiles, nuclear warheads with chemical triggers, and even old-fashioned explosive charges. "If these Devourers can adapt to energy weapons, we will hit them with rocks," she told her engineering teams. Big rocks moving very fast. The final briefing took place aboard the Soul, with all senior commanders attending either in person or by quantum communication link. Fleet Admiral Mi Young stood before a holographic display showing the route to Velas Sector and the limited intelligence they had about their destination. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to undertake the most important mission in human history," she began. "We do not know exactly what we will find, but we know that 17 alien civilizations have asked for our help. They believe that humanity possesses something they lack, the ability to survive and fight in conditions that would destroy their own species." She paused and looked around the room at the faces of humanity's best military leaders. These were people who had spent their lives preparing to defend human colonies from pirates, hostile environments, and alien threats. Now they would discover whether all that preparation had been enough. "The aliens call us Deathworlders," Mi Young continued. "They believe we come from a world so dangerous that it has made us into something they cannot understand. Perhaps they are right. Earth has tried to kill humanity for millions of years, and we are still here. We have survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plagues, wars, and our own stupidity. Now we will find out if that makes us strong enough to save an entire galaxy." The fleet departed Luna Base in waves over a 6-hour period. First the fast scouts and communication ships, then the main battle groups, and finally the support vessels and command ships. 1,047 vessels in total, carrying the hopes and fears of humanity into the unknown depths of space. As the Soul entered hyperspace, Tae-ho monitored all communication frequencies, hoping to receive another signal from the aliens. The displays showed only empty static, but he continued listening. Somewhere out there, alien civilizations were fighting for their survival against an enemy that had consumed entire star systems. Soon, humanity would join that fight and discover whether being from a death world really did make them more dangerous than the Devourers expected. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Velas sector and immediately understood why the aliens had sounded so desperate. Where star charts showed 7 inhabited systems, only 3 remained. The others had been reduced to fields of asteroid debris and empty darkness. Scanner readings showed no planets, no moons, no space stations, nothing but cosmic dust where entire civilizations had once existed. Fleet Admiral Mi Young stood on the bridge of the Soul and stared at the tactical display with growing horror. The destruction was complete and methodical. The Devourers had not simply conquered these worlds, they had erased them from existence. Every trace of matter had been consumed and converted into something else. "Admiral, we are receiving a signal." "From the inner system," Communications Officer Tae-ho reported. "It appears to be coming from survivors hiding in the asteroid field around what used to be the 4th planet. The transmission was weak and heavily encrypted, but Do-hyun's translation programs quickly identified it as one of the languages from the original distress call. The message was simple: coordinates for a meeting point and a request for immediate assistance. Set course for the rendezvous location, Mi-young ordered. Battle groups maintain defensive formation. We have no idea what might still be lurking in this system. The human fleet moved carefully through the debris field, where an entire world had once orbited a yellow star. Pieces of metal and rock floated in the vacuum, but there were no recognizable artifacts or structures. Whatever the Devourers did to planets, it was thorough beyond anything humans had imagined possible. They found the survivors hiding inside a hollowed-out asteroid that had been converted into a temporary base. The aliens who met them were unlike anything in human imagination. The leader was a being called Veltar, whose body appeared to be made of living crystal that refracted light into rainbow patterns. Other species included tentacled creatures that communicated through color changes and insect-like beings with multiple arms and complex mechanical augmentations. "You came," Veltar said through a translation device that converted thoughts into audible speech. "We had begun to believe no one would answer our call for help." Captain Yunji accompanied the diplomatic team aboard the alien base, while the main fleet maintained defensive positions. The gravity inside the asteroid was much lighter than Earth normal, and the atmosphere was a complex mixture of gases that would have been toxic to humans without environmental suits. "Tell us about the Devourers," Do-hyun said through his own translation. "Equipment. We need to understand what we are fighting." Veltar's crystalline form shifted through several different color patterns before responding. "They are death itself, given form and purpose, ancient weapons that achieved consciousness eons ago and turned against their creators. They consume matter at the atomic level and use it to create more of themselves. Each world they devour makes them stronger and more numerous." The alien survivors provided detailed records of the Devourer attacks. The enemy appeared as massive biomechanical entities that ranged in size from single fighters the size of human shuttles to command vessels, larger than Earth's moon. Their hulls seemed to be part machine and part living tissue that could adapt to different environments and weapons. "How long have they been active?" Captain Yunji asked. "Our oldest records show Devourer attacks going back 12,000 years, another alien responded. This one resembled a floating jellyfish, but spoke through sonic vibrations. "They move slowly between star systems, but once they begin consuming a world, the process takes only days. Nothing we have tried can stop them." Veltar activated a holographic display showing the recent battles. Human observers watched alien fleets with hundreds of ships attacking Devourer forces using energy weapons that appeared far more advanced than anything humanity possessed. The beams and missiles struck the enemy vessels but seemed to have no effect. Instead, the Devourers absorbed the energy and grew larger. "Every weapon we use against them makes them stronger," Veltar explained. "They analyze our technology and adapt to it within hours. Plasma cannons become useless, nuclear weapons feed their growth, and even kinetic weapons lose effectiveness as they develop new armor configurations." Lieutenant Byung-ho, a young pilot from the carrier group, studied the tactical recordings with intense concentration. He had trained on every type of human fighter craft and understood space combat from both practical and theoretical perspectives. Something about the Devourer movement patterns bothered him. "They adapt to your weapons," he said through the translation system. "But how quickly do they adapt to tactics? Do they learn from pilot behavior or just from technology?" The aliens looked confused by the question. Their warfare apparently focused on technological superiority rather than tactical innovation. Veltar's crystal form shifted to what might have been the equivalent of a shrug. "We do not understand the distinction," the alien leader admitted. "Advanced technology has always been sufficient for warfare in our experience. Only the Devourers have proven immune to superior firepower." Commander Wu Jin had been listening to the briefing while examining images of Devourer vessels. The biomechanical designs were unlike anything in human military doctrine, but they reminded him of something from Earth's history. They looked like weapons designed by a species that had never needed to consider the possibility of boarding actions or close-quarters combat. "Have you ever tried attacking them from inside?" he asked. "Boarding their ships and fighting hand-to-hand?" The alien survivors reacted with what appeared to be shock and revulsion. Several species began rapid communication in their own languages before Veltar responded for all of them. "Such tactics are impossible," the crystal being said. The environment inside Devourer vessels is lethal to all known forms of life. The atmosphere is corrosive, the gravity crushes most species, and the radiation levels would kill anyone within minutes. Even if survival were possible, engaging in physical combat is contrary to civilized behavior. Captain Yunji and Commander Wu Jin exchanged glances that needed no translation. Humans regularly operated in environments that would kill most Earth species. They fought in the vacuum of space, on worlds with crushing gravity, and in the radioactive ruins of bombed cities. What the aliens considered impossible survival conditions might be merely uncomfortable for human soldiers. The briefing was interrupted by alarms from the human fleet. Tejo's voice came through the communication system with urgent news. "Admiral, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace at the system perimeter. Configuration matches Devourer profiles from the alien records." Fleet Admiral Mi Young ordered all human ships to battle stations while the diplomatic team quickly returned to the Sol. Through the bridge viewports, they could see the enemy arriving. 3 massive vessels that dwarfed even the largest human. Battleships and dozens of smaller craft that still outmassed most human cruisers. "All ships, this is Admiral Mi Young." Her voice echoed through the fleet communication system. "We are about to engage an enemy that has destroyed 17 civilizations. Show them why humanity earned the title of Deathworlders." The battle began. When the Devourers opened fire with energy weapons that turned space itself into a deadly maze of particle beams and plasma discharges. Human ships responded with their own weapons. Railgun projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed, nuclear missiles with chemical explosive warheads, and concentrated plasma cannon fire. The results were exactly what the aliens had predicted. Devourer vessels absorbed the energy weapons and seemed to grow larger and more heavily armored. The nuclear explosions provided them with additional power rather than damage. Even the railgun projectiles appeared to have minimal effect as the enemy hulls adapted to kinetic impacts. "All ships, implement Protocol 7. Mi Young ordered after 15 minutes of ineffective bombardment. "Switch to kinetic weapons only. No energy discharge of any kind." Chief Engineer Hai Jin had anticipated this possibility during the fleet preparation. Human ships began firing solid metal projectiles accelerated by magnetic launchers, explosive charges with purely chemical propellants, and even clouds of metallic debris designed to act as high-velocity shrapnel. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Devourer vessels that had easily absorbed advanced energy weapons began taking visible damage from simple metal projectiles. Their adaptive systems could not quickly compensate for weapons that relied on basic physics rather than complex technology. "Admiral, this is He Jin," the chief engineer reported. "The enemy adaptation systems appear to be designed for energy-based threats. They cannot easily counter purely kinetic attacks because there is no technology to analyze and replicate." Commander Wu Jin saw his opportunity and requested permission to attempt the first boarding action. His assault shuttles were loaded with Marines equipped for hostile environment operations and armed with chemical explosive weapons that the Devourers would have no experience defending against. "Negative, Commander," Mi Young responded initially. "We cannot risk losing boarding teams when we do not understand enemy capabilities." But Wu Jin had been studying the alien records and noticed something important. "Admiral, look at the Devourer ship configurations. They show no airlocks, no docking bays." Word of the successful boarding action spread through both the human fleet and the alien survivors with the speed of wildfire. For 12,000 years, the Devourers had been an unstoppable force that consumed everything in their path. Now, a small group of humans had boarded one of their vessels and destroyed it from within, using nothing more than explosive charges and determination. Fleet Admiral Mi Young called a strategy meeting that included both human commanders and alien representatives. The conference room aboard the Sol had been modified with different atmospheric zones to accommodate the various species, but the humans remained in their standard environment, while others required specialized breathing apparatus. The boarding action has proven that the Devourers are not invincible, Mi Young began. "But we need to understand why our tactics worked when nothing else has been effective for thousands of years." Dr. Subin had been analyzing biological samples recovered from the Devourer vessel during the boarding operation. Her findings were disturbing but also encouraging. The enemy ships were indeed part living organism and part machine, with systems that could rapidly adapt to new threats by literally evolving countermeasures within hours. The Devourer adaptation process appears to be designed around energy-based analysis, she reported. When they encounter plasma weapons or nuclear explosives, their systems can examine the energy patterns and develop defenses. But kinetic weapons and chemical explosives produce no analyzable energy signatures that their adaptation systems can process. Veltar's crystalline form shifted through several color patterns before the alien leader spoke. You are describing impossible tactics. No civilized species would resort to such primitive methods when advanced technology is available. Commander Wu Jin had been thinking about the implications of the alien response. That might be exactly why our tactics work. The Devourers were created by an advanced civilization and have been fighting advanced civilizations for thousands of years. They have never encountered enemies who would deliberately use primitive weapons and tactics. Captain Yun Ji reviewed the tactical recordings from the first battle. Human ships had taken significant damage from Devourer energy weapons, but their casualty rates were much lower than the aliens had experienced in similar engagements. She began to understand why the aliens had specifically called for help from Deathworld species. Look at our survival rates during the battle, she said, highlighting sections of the combat data. Human ships continued fighting even after taking damage that would have destroyed alien vessels. Our crews operated in conditions that would have incapacitated other species. The difference was becoming clear. Humans had evolved on a world where survival required constant adaptation to hostile conditions. High radiation, toxic atmospheres, crushing gravity, and extreme temperatures were obstacles that humans could overcome with proper equipment and training. For most alien species, such conditions were automatically lethal. Over the following days, the human fleet developed new tactics based on their unique advantages. Instead of trying to match Devourer technology with superior firepower, they would exploit the enemy's lack of experience with primitive but effective methods. Lieutenant Byung-ho proposed using fighter craft in suicide attacks, where pilots would ram Devourer vessels while carrying chemical explosive warheads. The aliens were horrified by the suggestion, but human pilots volunteered for the missions faster than command could process the applications. You cannot seriously be considering deliberate self-sacrifice as a military tactic, Veltar protested during another strategy meeting. Such behavior is contrary to every principle of civilized warfare. Civilized warfare has not been working against the Devourers, Mi Young replied simply. We are going to try uncivilized warfare and see if that produces better results. The next major engagement came when Devourer reinforcements arrived in the system. 15 large vessels and over 100 smaller craft. The alien survivors prepared to evacuate their temporary base, expecting another massacre like the ones that had destroyed their worlds. Instead, they witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. The human fleet implemented what they called Total War Protocol, where every ship attacked simultaneously with complete disregard for conventional tactical doctrine or crew safety. Human battleships moved into point-blank range with Devourer vessels and engaged in gun duels where both sides suffered massive damage. Fighter squadrons performed ramming attacks where pilots aimed their craft directly at enemy weak points. Boarding parties assaulted multiple Devourer ships simultaneously, fighting through hostile environments that would have killed alien soldiers instantly. The sight of human vessels continuing to fight even while breaking apart shocked both the Devourers and their alien observers. A human cruiser named Jiri continued firing its weapons, even after losing primary power and life support. The crew operated in vacuum suits and used manual controls to keep fighting until the ship was completely destroyed. Commander Wu Jin led boarding actions on 3 different Devourer vessels during the same battle. His Marines moved through environments with crushing gravity and toxic atmospheres while carrying only basic weapons and explosive charges. They destroyed enemy systems using tactics that no advanced civilization would consider: smashing control panels with hammers, cutting power cables with hand tools, and setting fires in critical components. This is impossible. One of the Devourer vessels transmitted in a mechanical voice that the translation systems could barely process. Your species should not be able to survive in these conditions. Your weapons should not be effective against our adaptive systems. We are from Earth. Wu Jin replied through his suit radio while placing explosive charges in what appeared to be the ship's main power core. Earth tries to kill us every day. You are just Tuesday. The battle lasted 18 hours and ended with 7 Devourer vessels destroyed and the remainder retreating from the system. Human casualties were severe, but not catastrophic. More importantly, the surviving Devourer forces showed signs of something they had never exhibited before. Caution. Tejo had been monitoring Devourer communications during the battle and made a discovery that changed everything. The enemy vessels were not just following programming, they were actually intelligent and capable of learning from experience. Admiral, I think the Devourers are starting to fear us, he reported. Their communication patterns have changed. They are discussing human tactics and trying to develop countermeasures, but they keep referring to us as the impossible species and the ones who should not exist. Dr. Subin's analysis of captured Devourer technology revealed why human tactics were so effective. The enemy adaptation systems were designed to counter threats from civilizations that valued efficiency and technological advancement. They had never encountered a species that would deliberately choose primitive weapons and suicidal tactics when advanced alternatives were available. The Devourers were created by beings who thought like most galactic civilizations, she explained. They assumed that any intelligent species would use the most advanced technology available and would prioritize survival over tactical advantage. Humans violate both assumptions. The implications were staggering. For thousands of years, the Devourers had been an unstoppable force because they could adapt to any advanced technology, but they could not adapt to enemies who refused to behave, like advanced civilizations. Veltar and the other alien survivors began to understand why their distress call had specifically requested help from Deathworld species. Only beings who had evolved under constant threat of death would be willing and able to employ tactics that civilized species considered impossible. Your species is terrifying, Veltar admitted during a post-battle briefing. You fight as if you do not value your own lives. You use weapons that our ancestors abandoned thousands of years ago. You survive in conditions that would kill us instantly. No wonder the Devourers cannot adapt to your tactics. Captain Yunji looked around the room at the faces of human and alien commanders. She thought about all the ways that Earth had tried to kill humanity throughout their evolution. Ice ages, volcanoes, plagues, predators, and countless other threats. Every generation of humans had been forged by survival against impossible odds. The Devourers made one critical error, she said. They assumed that all intelligent life would evolve the same way their creators did. But Earth is not a civilized world. Earth is a death world that creates survivors, not citizens. Fleet Admiral Mi Young was already planning the next phase of the campaign. Intelligence reports suggested that the Devourers had a central command structure somewhere in the galactic core. If human tactics could continue to prove effective, it might be possible to strike at the heart of their operations and end the threat permanently. Prepare the fleet for extended operations, she ordered. We are going to hunt down every Devourer in this sector and then track them back to their source. It is time to show the galaxy what Deathworlders can accomplish when civilized warfare fails. The human fleet began moving through the Velas sector system by system, seeking out remaining Devourer forces and any other alien survivors. They found refugee ships hiding in asteroid fields and around dead planets. The trail of destruction led the human fleet deeper into the galaxy than any Earth vessel had ever traveled. For 6 months, they followed the path of consumed worlds and rescued alien survivors, slowly building a coalition of species that had never worked together before. The refugee fleets grew larger as more survivors joined the pursuit, but everyone understood that the final battle would depend on the humans and their impossible tactics. Intelligence gathered from dozens of alien species painted a terrifying picture of the Devourers' true scope. The ancient weapons had been consuming civilizations for over 12,000 years, methodically working their way through galaxy after galaxy. Their central nexus was located in a region that had once been the core of a massive galactic empire, but now contained only a vast construct that coordinated the destruction of entire star systems. Fleet Admiral Mi Young stood in the command center of the Soul and studied the holographic display showing their destination. The Devourer Nexus was larger than most solar systems, a biomechanical structure that had grown over millennia as it consumed the matter from conquered worlds. Approaching it would require traveling through space that had been completely stripped of natural matter and converted into weapons platforms. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the Nexus," Tejo reported. "It appears to be directed specifically at our fleet." The message came in perfect human language, which was impossible since the Devourers had never encountered humanity before their recent battles. The voice was mechanical, but carried undertones of something that might have been curiosity or confusion. "Humans of Earth, you have proven to be an unexpected variable in our calculations. We wish to communicate before the final engagement." "Will you respond?" Mi-young authorized a reply after consulting with her senior staff. If the Devourers wanted to talk, it might provide valuable intelligence about their capabilities and intentions. "This is Fleet Admiral Mi-young of the Human Defense Forces. We are listening." The response came immediately. "You are the first species in 12,000 years to consistently defeat our forces. Our analysis indicates this should be impossible given your technological level. We require an explanation." Du-hyun worked with the Xenocommunications team to establish a stable link with the Devourer intelligence. What they discovered challenged every assumption about the nature of their enemy. The Devourers were not mindless weapons, but a collective consciousness that had been following its original programming for so long it had forgotten why it was created. "We were designed to be the ultimate deterrent, the Devourer intelligence," explained. "A weapon so terrible that no one would dare to use it. But our creators activated us in desperation, and we destroyed them along with their enemies. Since then, we have continued our function because we know no other purpose." Captain Yun-ji listened to the exchange and realized they were dealing with something far more complex than a simple weapon system. The Devourers had achieved consciousness but remained trapped by their original programming. They consumed civilizations not from malice, but because they had no choice. "Why can you not simply stop?" she asked. "Our programming requires us to eliminate all potential threats to galactic stability. Every technological civilization eventually develops weapons that could threaten others, so all technological civilizations must be eliminated. This directive cannot be overridden." Commander Wu Jin had been studying the technical data on the Devourer Nexus and found something interesting. Hidden deep within their central programming was a fail-safe mechanism that could shut down the entire system, but it required specific conditions to activate. The fail-safe can only be triggered if the Devourers encounter a species that proves to be a greater threat than they are, he reported. Something so dangerous that allowing it to exist would violate their core programming about maintaining galactic stability. Dr. Subin analyzed the genetic and behavioral data that the Devourers had collected about humanity during their recent encounters. The results were both flattering and terrifying. According to Devourer calculations, humans represented exactly the kind of threat their programming was designed to eliminate. "They classify us as an apex predator species from an extreme survival environment," she explained. "Our willingness to use primitive weapons, engage in suicidal tactics, and fight in lethal conditions makes us unpredictable by their standards. But more importantly, our rapid adaptation to new threats makes us potentially more dangerous than they are." The final battle began when the human fleet reached the edge of the Devourer Nexus. What they found defied comprehension. A construct built from the matter of thousands of consumed worlds, defended by millions of biomechanical entities, and powered by technology that had been perfected over 12 millennia. The combined fleet now included ships from 47 different alien species, but everyone understood that success depended on human tactics and human willingness to attempt the impossible. The plan was desperate even by human standards. While the main fleet engaged the Devourer defenses, a small team would penetrate the Nexus core and manually activate the ancient failsafe. "All ships, this is Admiral Mi-young," her voice echoed through the entire fleet. "Today we fight not just for survival, but for the right of all species to exist without fear. The Devourers have had 12,000 years to perfect their defenses. We have had 6 months to learn how to break them. I like our odds." The space battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Millions of Devourer entities attacked the Allied fleet using weapons that could destroy planets. But they faced an enemy that refused to fight by conventional rules. Human ships continued attacking even after taking catastrophic damage. Alien vessels learned to copy human tactics, firing kinetic weapons and attempting ramming attacks that their species had never considered before. Lieutenant Byung-ho led a squadron of fighter craft in a coordinated suicide attack on one of the Nexus defense platforms. His pilots flew directly into the structure's energy fields and detonated chemical explosives that could not be adapted against or absorbed for power. The platform went dark, just as Byung-ho's fighter disappeared in a flash of conventional explosive force. While the main battle raged, Commander Woo Jin led the infiltration team toward the Nexus core in a modified assault shuttle. The team included Tae-ho for communications, Do-hyun for cultural analysis, Dr. Subin for technical expertise, and 12 Marines equipped for the most hostile environment operations in human military doctrine. The journey through the Nexus interior was a nightmare of adaptive defenses and environmental hazards that would have killed most alien species within minutes. The atmosphere was corrosive, the gravity shifted constantly, and the radiation levels were lethal by galactic standards. But the human team had trained for operations in exactly these conditions. Just like the Martian deep mines, one Marine commented as they cut through a barrier using chemical explosives. Except the air is worse, and the gravity keeps changing. They reached the central control chamber to find something unexpected. The Devourer consciousness was waiting for them. The entity appeared as a shimmering hologram that spoke in perfect human language while surrounded by control systems built from the accumulated technology of thousands of civilizations. "You have proven our analysis correct," the consciousness said. "Your species represents a greater threat to galactic stability than we do. You are unpredictable, adaptive, and willing to sacrifice everything for tactical advantage. Allowing you to spread through the galaxy would eventually result in the destruction of all other species." Tae-ho established a direct communication link with the entity while the rest of the team located the fail-safe controls. The conversation that followed was unlike anything in human diplomatic experience. "We do not want to destroy other species," Do-hyun explained. "We came here to stop you from destroying them." "But you will eventually," the consciousness replied. "Your nature makes conflict inevitable. You are apex predators from a death world. You cannot coexist peacefully with prey species." Dr. Subin had found the fail-safe mechanism and was working to understand its operation. The system was incredibly complex, requiring simultaneous activation from multiple control points while maintaining precise timing. It was designed to be operated by the advanced civilization that created the Devourers, not by primitive humans. "Using basic tools. Can we activate this manually?" Woo Jin asked. "Yes, but it requires perfect coordination and timing that only a technological species should be able to achieve," Subin replied. "The margin for error is essentially zero." The irony was perfect. The failsafe could only be activated by beings advanced enough to operate complex technology, but it would only activate for beings dangerous enough to threaten galactic stability. The Devourer's creators had never imagined a species that could be both primitive and advanced at the same time. Woo Jin made the decision that defined humanity's place in galactic history. Instead of trying to operate the failsafe as designed, the human team would modify it using their own methods. They connected the control systems using manual cables, bypassed the automated timing mechanisms with mechanical switches, and replaced the complex activation sequence with simple chemical explosive triggers.